Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the third Black Achievers Alliance Speaker Series event with Black Achievers Alliance founder, Ms. Robbie Wilson. Today, her guest is Alameda author and a whole lot more, Kate Schatz. And so I just want everybody to note that you've all been muted, but the chat feature is turned on. So if you have a question for Robbie or for Kate, you can go ahead and ask it in the chat field, and we'll go ahead and take all of the questions after our opening remarks. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Robbie.
Thank you. Thank you. Ooh, where am I? Sarah. for the intro. I'm just looking at all the faces on here. Good to see good to see you, Brooke, your picture on there. Let me just say, this has been a difficult week. If you know anything about me, I'm very transparent. I don't know how to fake the funk, so to speak. So what I feel, you see, you hear, that is the way in my tradition, Great Spirit and ancestors created me to be. And so I'm gonna say that and with no apologies, because we're in a time where there's no room for that. I'm thankful today that my friend Kate Schatz is on here today, because to be honest with you guys, I would not be here today if she was not the guest. This week, verdict on Breonna Taylor hit me to the core. I have been crying pretty nonstop ever since. She represents me. It could easily be me. It still can easily be me. It could be my daughter. And my daughter's the reason that I started Black Achievers Alliance, I guess 6-7 years ago. I don't know what it is now, 6 years ago. Because I was trying to have hope that people would unite and people would love, and we can do this thing called life together. And this week, what's happened is the reality has really sunk in. Is this the first murder of a Black person? No. My God, we got one on video, and everyone watched, what was it, 8 minutes? He died in front of us, and yet there's no charges yet. We wait 6 months to hear something on behalf of Breonna to get back a verdict of nothing. The wall next to her was more important than her life. I've did so many marches. I've been doing this work for 20 years. And you know, in Alameda, a long time, been doing it a long time, over a decade. And I always envisioned, I had hope. You know, I left the corporate job, making good money to join an after-school program here in Alameda because they were the children at risk. They were the BIPOC children, and they needed someone that can give them hope. I don't have hope today. My spirit is hurt. My heart is hurt. I don't have hope. The messenger has lost faith in the message. And that's a terrible place to be. I've gotten a lot of outreach from folks, and you know, thank you for those who reached out. Some of it was reality check, you know, and I gotta say, you know, that today's topic is about allies, specifically white allies, quote unquote, as folks claim to be. And what I can say sitting here today, although this week has been heart-wrenching, folks, I do have some true white allies. And for that, I'm thankful. The last thing I want to do is get hate in my heart, or vengeance in my heart. But what I can tell you that day, when the verdict came through, I got over 5 calls from Black people in the community looking to me to what to do next. Looking to me for hope. And I had nothing to give them. I listened to grown men cry over the phone to me, thinking I had an answer. I couldn't tell them the usual answer because, you know, what I'm finding out is that usual answer is not making a difference. I look at this summer here, and it's not just across the nation, it's right here in Alameda. And today, you know what, after crying so much this week, I'm gonna be straightforward. It's happening right here in Alameda. I can probably even look through this screen and see, I can look through this screen and see where some folks have nice words, but it doesn't always follow through, and we need follow through. I have marched in these streets further than I have walked in years. I have led the youth and guided the youth and told them that their voice mattered. I have led the BIPOC community here in Alameda. I have been places that most of you have never even thought to go in, some of these places, right here in Alameda. And I told them to have hope. That even though these people don't look like us, I have faith that they're listening to us. We're a small enough community. We're on the steps of City Hall. We got elected officials, and I'm not gonna mention any political stuff. I know I'm not allowed to, but we have elected officials up there, and thank you for showing up. I see Marilyn, you here. Thank you for showing up, but I'm gonna talk direct. It looked great. It was a great cover of the newspapers, great pictures, great photo ops, but guess what, man? As soon as that was over, here we go again, back to old Alameda. And I'm seeing it, and I'm hearing it, and I'm pissed. Because I believed it, and I led a lot of people to believe it. And now they're calling me, and I have no answers. Obviously, my voice doesn't matter. Obviously, my life doesn't matter. It's more clear today than ever in my 55 years of living, and I've seen some stuff in my 55 years. So I thank you guys for showing up today. I don't want this to be a comfortable conversation for you guys. I don't. Because guess why? Because for me to live, if my daughter to live, it is not a comfortable situation. And that's our reality. So honored that Kate is in my life. I believe we're spirit sisters because only the universe could have connected us as it did so quickly and so firmly at this nick of time. And so I am going to allow her, because you know what? I'm hoping y'all listen to her because she looks like y'all. And thank you for showing up on this beautiful Saturday, Sunday day. Thank you for all the Black Lives t-shirts that y'all wear around town, all the signs I drive by and see in the windows. That's great. I need more than that. My people on this island need more than that. You can take that t-shirt off. You can collect dust in the window with that sign, but you can take it off. We're still gonna be Black, Latinx, Filipino, all the BIPOC community. We're still gonna be that. We don't have that luxury. But I do thank you for showing up. Quite brave, thank you. And so I'm gonna be quiet because I wanna hear how the magic, the medicine that Kate, I'm trusting that Great Spirit and my ancestors have brought you here today to offer. Because you're gonna be speaking to, yes, folks that look like you, but I need to hear your words from me. Because I am 3/4 indigenous of this land, Choctaw and Cherokee, and 1/4 from Africa, Benin. And my great aunt that called me to my path as a medicine woman always taught me, you know, it's very representative of the shirt I wore today. I don't know if you can see it. Stand up. It is an indigenous piece of art, which is a warrior at the end of a huge battle. when they feel that they have exhausted every muscle in their body, every breath in their body to fight anymore. And they stand at the top of the hill and they slunch their body and they realize it's the end of the trail. I'm hoping today does not mark the end of the trail for me here in Alameda, trying to do this work, because I'm tired. I'm tired. I need y'all to show up. Not just on Zooms, not just when it's, trendy to do, but in the nick and the grit on the front line. So Kate, my friend, all you.
Thank you, Robbie. And thank you, everybody who's here and who showed up on this beautiful Saturday. And I hear you, Robbie. I really do. And, I hear nothing I'm going to say. Like, one thing I don't want to do at all is to try to make you feel better, because sometimes when we try to make people feel better when they're really in pain, it can almost feel like we're trying to negate their pain or reduce it. So I just want to acknowledge the depth of your anger and your pain and disappointment right now. You and all BIPOC people, all Black folks around this entire country. I feel it. I hear you. I see you. I don't question it. And I don't critique it. I don't critique anybody's reaction right now. So I really hear you. I probably, if it wasn't you today, I probably would have flaked also. So I do want to say to everybody listening, I want to just, hopefully my setup will work here. I'm actually in a motel in Santa Cruz. My kids are in the other room. I had to get out of town for the weekend. So hopefully nobody bursts down, hopefully the kids are all right and my motel Wi-Fi stays here. But, Robbie, I think, when you say that you think the universe brought us together, I think that I'm going to say it's a particular force in the universe. And I think that I want to just say hello and honor our good mutual friend, Sia. I think a lot of you who are on here know Sia. And I want to say that I think Sia is a person who came into my life and probably taught me the most, I think, in my life, and probably pushed me the most on, she taught me the most about Alameda, this town that I moved to 8 years ago, and I didn't really understand. I learned a lot about Alameda from Sia. Some good and a lot of real. And she's probably the person in my life who pushed me the most on my whiteness, on my role as a white woman in activist spaces. She probably challenged me the most. She loved on my kids like nobody else. She loved on me, but she also really pushed me, and I want to honor her. I think about her all the time when I talk, and every time I drive past where she lived, I think, whew. And if folks don't know Sia, I apologize for going off, but I think a lot of you do. And Sia, we lost Sia after a long battle with breast cancer. And in some ways, I'm glad she didn't live to see this year and then deal with COVID. But I also, what I learned so much from Sia about, I learned about housing inequity in Alameda, and I really learned about the deep disparity in systemic racism in the healthcare system is something I witnessed up close with her. And I feel like I was doing this work for a long time, but Sia really pushed me into a new realm. So I want to acknowledge her. And again, thanks everybody for listening. I hope I have some good stuff to say. And my favorite thing to do is to answer questions. So, I want to just say, I know the chat function's happening. So if folks want to pop in with questions, and Robbie, I think one thing that you do that's familiar to me is that you carry a lot, and it's really heavy. And I think that when you are such a leader in your community, that there's that pressure of people looking to you for hope all the time, and it's a really terrifying feeling when you don't have that hope. And I relate to that as a parent. Those moments when your kids are scared and they look to you and they see that you're scared, it's a terrifying feeling. And so I just want to say that, you don't always have to have hope. And I think, again, I don't want to negate your feelings right now, but I know that there are a lot of people that your words matter a lot to a lot of people. I know it might not feel like it, but it matters a lot to me. And I know it does matter to a lot of folks. So, so for folks that don't know me, I live in Alameda. I'm an author. I've been involved in anti-racist and feminist and reproductive rights and environmental activism for much of my life. And I talk about this stuff a lot. And I also really like to say that I'm not an expert at all. And I'm not a perfect ally, because nobody is. I'm a really privileged white woman. And I walk through this world with an enormous amount of privilege all the time. I own a home. I look like I do. I'm very able-bodied. I'm employed. I have a lot, and I'm really conscious of it. And, like you said, I can wear this t-shirt, and I wear it, stuff like this as often as I can, but I can also take it off. And I see that there's kids on here, so I'm going to be real careful with my language, but I mess up, and so I mess up a lot, and I've messed up a lot in my life. And I think that when we talk about white people and that role, the roles that we can play in anti-racist work and in community it is not about what to do if we mess up or say the wrong thing or get it wrong. It's how we react when we do, because I believe it's inevitable that white people will say the wrong thing, get it wrong, use the wrong phrase, do something that you thought was good and helpful and the right thing, and it will not be the right thing. We will cause harm. In a lot of cases, our mere presence is harmful. And that's a big thing that I think I've had to kind of come to grips with over the years, is knowing that the trauma of systemic institutionalized white supremacy and racism in this country means that there are cases where no matter how good I think I'm being as a white person and how right on and just good I am, my mere existence can be triggering and traumatizing to people. There might be people of color who do not want to deal with me, who don't want to have anything to do with me. And I've experienced that. I think that some of the deepest learning and reckoning that I've had is when I've really thought that I was showing up for a person and doing the right thing, and had to come to accept that there was someone who just did not want another white lady around. And I think that, connects to something I do talk about a lot, which is the importance of being as humble as possible. And listening. So Robbie was like, what should we call this talk? I don't know. And I was like, I don't know, something about like when allies listen. Like, I was thinking like those shows, like When Sharks Attack. It's like, when allies listen. Whoa, what happens when white people who want to do the right thing actually just listen to try to find out what the right thing is? I think a lot of white, and let me be clear, there's all kinds of white people out there in the same way that there's all kinds of Black people, right? No culture is a monolith. There's not one right way to be. There's not one way that everybody thinks. But I think when you have a town like Alameda and you've got people who are highly educated, progressive, liberal, all of those kind of Bay Area qualities that we love so much, but often think that they know the answers. And because when we talk about white supremacy, it is the idea that your whiteness makes you supreme, right? That it makes you the center, makes you imbued with better qualities, that you're smarter, that you know what's right? And that is when you are born into this country as a white person, you are the center of everything. You are the center of media and culture. You're the center of learning in a lot of textbooks. You're the center of most narratives. And so that deep sense of superiority, I think, often plays out in allyship when white people, again, are wanting to do the right thing and thinking they know the answers before they ask the questions. And I think that is a thing I've really tried to learn, and what I want to encourage folks to do is when faced with a situation, when faced with a crisis, or you know, a community situation, or something in your personal life, you definitely might assume that you know the right way to go about it, like the right thing to say, or like, this is the policy we need, or this is how it should work. But if you haven't started by asking questions of the communities that are most impacted, I think that's where so much goes wrong. And I think that that goes from just the total personal level out to the city and state and, you know, legislative level, when we don't actually sit down and quietly listen to the people who are the most impacted and the most in need. And, you know, Robbie, to go back to what you started with, just this time right now, you know, we're really in a backlash, you know. And I think that for folks who don't know my work, I write about history. I write about American history. I write mostly about women throughout history, and kind of radical American histories. And I mean, you don't have to be a student of history to know how cyclical this history is, and how intense and predictable backlash is. Like, we are in the backlash to Obama right now. We are, and if it feels like we're losing ground, whether it's the no charges in the murder of Breonna Taylor, or the announcement of, you know, a fundamentalist woman, anti-abortion woman for the Supreme Court, if it feels like we are losing ground, it's because we are. And like, you know, it's a really heavy backlash. I mean, we've got armed white supremacists, right-wing extremists coming into Portland. I mean, cities all over, but that's one where it's really happening. And yeah, it's really scary. And it's, you know, I think that, you know, we are all grappling for that hope, Robbie. And again, like, I feel you being out of hope. I think sometimes taking that long view is the only thing that gives me hope, knowing that this is how this backlash, you know, it's like the arc of history, right? There's the line that it bends towards justice. I'm like, it's not a bend, it's like a loop. It's like we are constantly looping back on ourselves. And maybe there is incremental progress, but that progress never comes without a really horrific backlash to it. And that's not necessarily hopeful. I don't feel hopeful thinking like, well, great, well, 10 years out from now, maybe things will be a little bit better. I don't, but I really do think of this moment as, I think it's important that we accept that we're like in the throes of backlash. And part of that too is, you know, I mean, I feel like I'm trying to tell myself, I got to stop being surprised when all this bad stuff happens. Like, you know, it's real predictable. And I this is something that I did say with, you know, especially to white people, when things happen, like the verdict in the Breonna Taylor case, I think one of the worst things that I can hear from well-meaning white people is that they can't believe it, right? I can't believe it. Oh, I'm shocked. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe this happened. Like, we've got it. Yeah, you can. Nobody's shocked. No Black person is shocked. No one's surprised by this. It's heartbreaking. You can be angry. You can be pissed and devastated, but you're not shocked. And I think that more and more we have to be real in terms of what we're facing. We got to stop being shocked. We got to stop being surprised and shocked when half the state is on fire. Like, this isn't, you know, climate crisis is real too. Like, this stuff isn't, we've got to get to a point where we're not surprised. We can, again, be outraged, and we can be motivated, and we can be moved to act, but the constant kind of like, whoa, I can't believe it, is not, that's based in some willful ignorance. And I don't blame anybody for wanting to not believe it, but yeah. So let's see, I was trying to make some notes too as you were starting, Robbie, and I know, you know, I guess I have some things that I tend to repeat often, or kind of my talking points around being an ally or an accomplice or a co-conspirator. I think there's a range of terms that folks are using right now. And I think one of the most important things is, and Robbie, you use the term, you know, folks who claim to be an ally, right? And that's the thing. you know, you're an ally when your actions are recognized and are impactful for the communities that you want to be an ally for. The only person who decides you're an ally is the person who feels supported and protected and cared for by you. So that can be around race, that can be around being an ally for queer communities. When you show up for someone and really do something that supports them, even if nobody sees it, even if it's not on Instagram, even if no one else, even if you don't tell anybody, even if it is something deeply personal between you and another person, if you show up and that person feels that they can trust you, then you're an ally to them. Because you could turn around and not show up for somebody else. And you're not an ally to that person, right? And so I think that when we think about allyship, we have to think about it in terms of like, it's about trust. And trust is really, really hard to gain. Trust, right? That we always say trust has to be earned. And I think that goes back to what I said about me kind of learning that there are people who just are not going to trust me because I am a white woman. And I accept that as part of the shitty burden of white privilege that I carry around with me. And there are people who are I'm gonna really have to earn their trust. And again, how do you earn someone's trust? You earn it by showing up, by caring for them, by showing that you are someone who's safe, right? Trust is also rooted in safety. And when it comes to race, when it comes to white people, there are countless infinity reasons for a BIPOC person to not feel safe around a white person. No matter how nice you are and what sign is in your front yard and what t-shirt you're wearing. And I think, I think something that's often stuck with me is when I grew up in the Bay Area. So I grew up in San Jose, and I've been in the Bay Area my whole life. And I feel really conscious of what a limited experience. I've lived elsewhere, but I know that I have a limited perspective being from here. And it's been really opening. And I've become friends with people of color who grew up in the South, and hearing people say, like, talk about, we have the perception of the Bay Area as like this really safe, nice place. And I've had a number of people be like, no, like where I grew up in Alabama or Mississippi or wherever, you knew who the racists were because they had a big old flag in their front yard, or they had it, they were wearing the t-shirt, they had the hat on. They're like, in the Bay Area, you don't know, everybody looks the same and everybody's being really nice, and everybody smiles the same. And so again, I was like, I remember hearing that years ago, and that really hit me, like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense. So again, you are an ally when you are trustworthy. And it is it's a nice thing to be able to say that you are, like, in general, but I think that we have to think about it as a moment to moment thing. It's not like a blanket term that you just get to like be that, because you're not all the time. And again, I like to go back to what I said at the beginning. It's not about what do I do if I F up. It's you will. And so when you do that, if you cause harm to someone, or if you breach that trust, how do you repair it? How do you act? How do you keep showing up for somebody? And I think that right now, I think part of that is also so deeply connected to the importance of empathy and understanding, understanding that we cannot truly understand the experience and pain and BIPOC folks, especially in moments like this. I'm pissed about Breonna Taylor too, but I know that it's not hitting me in the gut the way that it is for a lot of people. I know that. And it's hitting me, but I know that it's nowhere near what it is for you, Robbie, what it is for other folks. And I think I was I learned early on that, you know, I really want to always be careful about not trying to conflate experiences, right? Like not saying like, well, I'm a woman, I've experienced sexism, so I know what it feels like to experience racism, right? Those things are not the same. I don't conflate those things, you know, but one thing I've sometimes said, especially to white women, is, you know, like, who maybe can't quite wrap their heads around why everybody's so upset about, you know, a police shooting or something. It's like, man, do you remember how mad you were during those Kavanaugh hearings, white lady? Like, do you remember that rage you felt when you watched Christine Blasey Ford testify? Do you remember the trauma and like how you just hated every dude in your life? Like for like 2 weeks, like every white woman I knew just like hissed at every man who walked by and was just like, bah! like, yeah, like that feeling you had, you know, or like that sense you had when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died last Friday and you heard that news, that like gut punch of feeling like, oh my God, it's over. Like that is a version, you know, like you may have not felt that same thing when this news came out about Breonna Taylor, but like if you can find in yourself some time that you have reacted, like there's been news that just really got you, I think that can really increase your empathy for what people are feeling right now and will continue to feel, you know, or because like Robbie said, this is not the only high profile. I mean, this is certainly not the only case like this, but it's also not the only high profile one, right? We're still going to be waiting to hear what happens with the cops who killed George Floyd. Like we keep living this out, and it continues to be painful. So how do we show up as white people right now? I think, Robbie, I'm glad to hear that people have been reaching out to you. And I think, you know, listening, and if most of what you're hearing right now is rage, or if people aren't even wanting to talk to you, like that's also okay. You know, and I think also taking the lead, and I really think if racial justice is something that is truly important to you, really trusting and investing in the Black leadership and BIPOC leadership in communities, whether it's the school board or the city council or the state races or wherever, or supporting organizations that are preparing and supporting candidates for future elections as well. We've got, you know, we have to have some substantial shifts in power structures and who's in those seats and who's in those positions of power. And that's something I think is incredibly important and really believe. And we've got to also look to existing Black leaders, organizations that are Black led, and see what are they calling for? What actions are they calling for? And if they're not calling for anything right now because they're all too pissed and traumatized to talk to you, then you just wait. You know, and we can figure other things out. But moving to that place of listening, and it's interesting because I think often of the very important phrase of, you know, white silence is violence, you know, or silence is silence is complicity. Like that's super true, but also sometimes a little silence, a little listening is actually really needed for white people. And so I think there's a difference between a kind of white silence that just means you don't ever speak up, you know, and a kind of whiteness where you do speak, but maybe when spoken to or when you're asked to speak. And, you know, I shared my rant on Instagram was just, you know, kind of in the wake of the Breonna Taylor verdict, of course, as protests break out and all this stuff. And there's the inevitable chorus of white people who come in with their critiques of protest methods and, oh, well, it needs to be peaceful. And I'm like, you know what? This is not the time for your opinion. I don't see any Black folks asking for white people's opinions on the most effective protest tactics right now. You know, you can have those opinions, but like, you know, this is really the time because there's a lot of pain out there. So I think that I could probably just keep talking for a long time, and you know, but I also want to make sure that I answer any questions that people have. Again, I really don't talk from a position of being an expert, and I want to be as honest as I can about not always getting it right. And I know I've worked in community and collaboration with a lot of people over the years, and I've definitely made my share of missteps. So I am not here with all the answers, but this is something that I'm willing to talk about in as many venues as I can.
Thank you, Kate. I just want to go back to, you said so much. I listened. I'm hoping everyone listened to your words. You say you're not an expert. I say in my tradition, you are spirit and flow. Which in my tradition, you know, you bring up, and I have to acknowledge her back into the room because you mentioned Sia. And I have been praying to Sia since that verdict came through.
Yeah.
Because when I first started this work, and I'm looking at my daughter right now, she just came in the room. I'm okay. I'm crying.
Hi, Lala.
Hi, everyone says hi, Lala. Okay, come on, quickly, say hi. This is why I do it, y'all. I have to say, I used to be in the school board meetings, city council meetings, and those meetings were going forever. And I would have Lala, she was little. I would have her right there, and I was looking at you, Megan, seeing James' little face, and Lala was that little, and there you are. What's up, James? You were why I do this, man. And I remember people would give me so much crap. Take that baby home. Why do you text me? You know, people I thought were friends. She shouldn't be out there. And lo and behold, every single time I would get this text from Sia. And she would say, I see you. She said, don't you dare stop. That baby sees you. You have to do this for our babies. My daughter sat through these meetings, your daughter would be fine. And I would sit through those meetings. And so when you mentioned my tradition, our ancestors, she truly is an ancestor for both of us. And you're right, I do believe she brought this together because this conversation would not have happened without her doing the dance in the middle. So thank you to her spirit. I also want to acknowledge, you know, when I speak of, I do have allies in my life. One thing I've learned through all of this, and just this last month, even with, I'm not a politician by no means, I'm a humanitarian. And I hate politics, to be honest with you. It brings out for some the truth, who they really are. But also stirs up some stuff in folks that maybe it was there all along, but not quite sure. And one of the things that I'm seeing here in Alameda is how the BIPOC voices from the summer, the children were amplified, they were supported. And one of the things, some of the calls I was getting, or have been getting until this morning, is Miss Robbie. I thought you said our voice mattered. I thought you said all those people that were standing next to us really cared. That's what's breaking my heart. Yes, it breaks my heart, the Black community that called me up, but like you said, wasn't really shocked. I wasn't shocked. I just think it hit to the core because of all that, the movement we thought we were doing. You just see that nothing really has changed. So yeah, so thank you for putting that out there. It's not really a shock. It's another reality check, is what it is. You know, and third to those friends that have showed up as allies and taking care of me when I a lot of times forget to take care of myself because I selfless service. Yes, that's what matters. I had a friend that, yeah, she did exactly what you said, and she said something that she tried to compare two different. I think it was sexism. I think you hit it right on the nose. And my reaction, because it was in the beginning of the week, was probably not that great. But my reaction was, whoa. And she right away, immediately, this is where I consider her an ally. Because you're right, we're all going to make mistakes. I make mistakes. but it's your response to that mistake.
Yeah.
Right away, I said to her, whoa, wait a minute. She goes, oh my goodness. And she checked herself, less than 5 minutes, this all happened. And she came back, boom, this is what I should have said, and I'm just here to listen. Before this topic even came out, I'm just here. That's an ally. Not someone who goes on the keyboard after private message wanting to defend their case. So thank you for that. That was good medicine for me. Okay. Because I have examples of those too, and it returns a little bit back more of my hope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's also.
I know we have a lot.
Oh, good. Do we have questions?
Yeah, we have a lot of questions.
To add that to it. I want to add that to you. To when you say you're not an expert, claim being an expert because you know what you're talking about. So, Sarah, questions.
Yeah, and sorry to everybody that we have to do it this way, but we have had some issues last time with some people, coming with bad intentions. And so ask whatever you want in the chat and I will read your words. And it's not as good as asking out loud, but it's the best that we can do. So to start, Brooke asked, when Robbie mentioned Black Lives Matter shirts and signs, I believe she was describing performative allyship. I'm interested in the spectrum of allyship, active ally to accomplice to co-conspirator. Can you please speak to this and give some tangible actions?
So I was doing a talk the other day and one of the questions, I was moderating a panel and one of the questions was, how do I avoid performative allyship? And my answer was, don't perform your allyship. Like, I don't know, just don't perform. Like, what is performing? It's acting, it's pretending. So, and I think that look, again, there are no clear right answers here. I believe heavily in the importance of white people making their support visible. I believe in the importance of t-shirts and bumper stickers and signs in your window. I think it's about what you also do in addition to that sign, right? And so if you have the sign up, but your behavior is not in line with that message, then it's performative. I think also people talk about performative allyship in the context of social media. So for instance, someone has an Instagram profile, they don't ever mention anything about this. And then there's suddenly, everybody posts that black square and you post your one black square and you hashtag Black Lives Matter and then you never mention it again, right? So that's, I think, where sometimes people start to talk about being performative. So again, and I also, I challenge this idea of performative allyship because I guess like, it's also something that somebody would accuse you of. So if you are just doing the work, if you are showing up for people or one person or communities, and you know that you're showing up and they know that you're showing up, then you're good. You're not performing. If again, it doesn't matter what you say you are, because if you're really showing up, then it's not performative, and I think that I would also say that for some people, just the act of putting the Black Lives Matter sign in your window, that's actually huge for some white people, and I want to honor that for some people, that's actually like a really big step and a really, really a big risk. There are people who, and maybe not in Alameda where it's a little safer, but you might really feel like you're putting yourself out there by putting on that t-shirt and walking around. And I never want to dismiss, it's easy to be like, oh, wear a t-shirt, anybody can do that. But it can be really hard and a big deal for some people. So wherever you're at on that, again, I think that's part of the question is the spectrum. So for some people, it begins with just wearing a shirt. And then for others, I think, further down the line, the two kind of, and there's like some really great charts and graphics out there that I actually think break down that spectrum from allyship to kind of co-conspirator. I've seen a lot of really good visuals where it's talking about really like what it looks like to be really questioning your whiteness, really doing work, really decentering yourself, really divesting as much as possible from white supremacist institutions in your community and your life. There is a whole spectrum, and I think there's some graphics that sum it up probably better than I could.
Great. Okay, so Penelope said, here's a question for Robbie. She moved from Alameda 3 years ago to Boise, Idaho. She says there's not a lot of diversity there, but she wants to educate her children on anti-racism. How can she be an ally in an area where diversity is lacking?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Why I don't live in Boise, I don't know. But it's that's a tough one. I kind of think I'm going to kind of piggyback on what Kate just said, because I think it's absolutely correct. You know, I think where we talk about the T-shirt and the sign, my belief is there needs to be action behind that. But I do want to, for some, you're right, it's growth for them just to do that. And so when I think of a place like Boise, Idaho, I don't know how safe it is. I don't know how agent for children. So I don't want to put out what I would do. What I would say is talk to some local groups. If there's a group around there that has any kind of diversity, no matter what race that is, and get input from them, how they're surviving it. Because yeah, I definitely want to put my words out there to put someone in harm's way in an area that is probably not the safest. I don't know. But definitely I would reach out to see if there's any groups out there already doing that work. Whether it's Black, whether it's Latinx, whether it's Filipino, whatever it is, be involved with some kind of a BIPOC community, because in a lot of ways we all suffer the same, different levels, but all pretty much the same racism. So that's the way I would answer. Do you have anything with that, Kate? What you would do?
Well, I would add too, and hi Penny, you know, I would add, like, you know, I think it's true. Like, there's this, I think for white people, an important part of this is assuming some level of risk, like, and discomfort, right? And Robbie said you didn't want this to be a comfortable conversation. And I think that this part of this is like, it should be uncomfortable at some point. You know, you should be uncomfortable with what yourself and your history, right? We also have to, I want you to be safe, right? Like, there are places in the country where you could get run off the road for your Black Lives Matter sticker. Here, people who just walk around with dark skin have fears even greater than us, you know, that's the reality. So I think what you feel like you can risk in terms of that visibility, and maybe it's like when you're hanging out with a group of moms, you have your Black Lives Matter shirt on and it's a small group, and maybe the conversation comes up. Maybe it's suggesting like a book club with a group of other people that you know, some friends, you know, like parents from school. And the other thing I would add too, though, for parents in particular, for white parents, and when it comes to talking to your kids, is to not forget about the importance of, when you want to, like, you know, make sure that your kids have exposure to diverse media and books and everything, but not just talking about race and racial justice in the context of trauma, and terrible histories, but making sure that your kids are also exposed to really positive examples of diverse culture and folks. John, I see you and Madeline in here, and thinking about you guys' books, The Courageous Adventures of the Conscious Kids, which showcases super diverse kids just living. They're solving problems, but they're also just living, and like making sure that your kids are reading books and watching movies. You have to do some looking, because again, publishing is super racist, and so is Hollywood. So taking the time to not just be reading the books about like civil rights heroes and terrible histories, but some books that showcase Black joy, some great movies where the protagonists aren't white and are just kids of color who just live and exist. You know, showing your kids
that's really why the Black Achievers Alliance started. So.
Yeah. Two other suggestions for Penny. Cheryl said she can be an ally in places we aren't, in whites only spaces where white people are disparaging and being generally anti-Black. And then Brooke said, as someone who grew up in an almost all white area, Oregon, I think it's important as a white person to learn the history of your area. Why is it so white? That's one thing you could do. And then Robbie, here's a message from Kimberly. She says she's here to listen explicitly because of the depth of your heart, and that she knows she has a lot to learn about how to support you and your brothers and sisters of color. Mia said, thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Kate. I think the toughest thing right now is the listening doesn't feel or look like what's happening, look like what happens when people listen. What do you think it looks like, Kate, when white allies show that they are listening?
That's a great question. I mean, it's interesting when you're reading that, before you even got to that question, I was actually thinking, wow, what does listening look like? Look, first thing that comes to my mind is that nasty cesspool of Facebook. I'm sorry, some of y'all love it. I think that is just a hot mess. I hate it, can't stand it. See a lot of people on it commenting all the time, and sometimes listening looks like not feeling like you have to respond, especially in a public social media forum. Sometimes it's just not having that clap back and feeling like you have to get that last word in and make that point. And it's just sitting on your words and not responding. And to, you know, when it comes to Facebook, again, like sometimes people are involved in these heated back and forth comments. Take it off Facebook, contact people directly, have human conversations. I use social media, yeah. So that's one thing. Sometimes it can look like just, you know, and then look, I want everybody to advocate for themselves and to speak their mind, especially women. That's so much of the work that I do. I don't want women feeling silenced. This isn't about holding your tongue and holding back and not speaking your truth. I'm talking about specifically in these contexts when you're a white person in dialogue. And if you want to show that you're listening, again, it can sometimes mean keeping your mouth shut and maybe withholding some opinions. Maybe you don't totally agree, but like, so what does it look like to really learn and to actively listen? You know, and if you've ever done like nonviolent communication training, thinking about the way that you really hear people, the language you can use to kind of say, okay, I hear what you're saying, and to think things through. And to not be afraid. I would also say sometimes listening looks like coming back later, like after a conversation or a meeting or a dialogue, and following up. Like Robbie, you said your friend, she corrected herself in about 5 minutes, but sometimes it means maybe sitting on something and then coming back to communicate and say, hey, I really thought about that conversation, or I've been thinking about that thing that you said, and here's what I realized. So those are just some thoughts. But also everybody should just think about, what does listening look like to you? Like, what, you know, what is it?
To me, it's not interrupting also, which I have a very hard time doing. Somebody suggested watching the movie The Social Dilemma. They said that Facebook is at the center of manipulation. Chrissy says to Robbie, when you say that you want us to get in the grit and on the front line with you, what would that look like? How can she best lend her support?
Thank you for that question. First and foremost, you showed up today on this beautiful day because you could have chose to do something else. Second is checking in on, you know, folks, check in on Black leaders, your Black friends. I can tell you most of us are not doing too well. We may fake it, we have to, but we're not doing too well. We're tired. And the trenches means, you know, help, you know, when we're organizing some of these marches or some of these protests, be a part of that movement. Be a part of making sure not just you show up and maybe your white friends, but making, you know, taking the risk and inviting some Black folks to come out, extending yourself. We're kind people. I was saying something, one of the Black mothers who, saw me yesterday, and known her for many years. I'm very proud of her, did a lot of work with her and her kids. And she's, you know, when you were saying about teaching kids about other than the black strife, the reason Black Achievers Alliance was created, so my daughter would know that beyond the strife, we still achieve, we still rise. That's hence came the name Black Achievers Alliance. So as a person, what can you do is, yeah, calling me up to Robbie, you know what, I got this idea, let's do this to get the word out. Let's do this. So it's not just all on me. And then help me, you know, you guys have more influence, you have more power, I hate to say it, because you guys are in more positions because of who the privilege you are. Really utilize that. You know, there's some folks that utilize it and they say they're gonna do it, and then when you call for that follow-up, they're nowhere to be found. So be about what you say you're going to be about, like that action with the sign and the t-shirt. Truly be about action. It's hard. It's hard coming up and empowering people over and over again. And so the best way to do in the trenches is to be in the trenches with us. You know, I think about, that's what you get, my daughter just fell out of the chair. I think about the two men, I think it was two men that lost their lives in Oregon during the protests. I think it was Oregon. And they were allies, they were comrades to their death in this fight last month. You know, one stepped in front of a gun so they wouldn't shoot all the rest of the people, and none of them were color. not telling you to step in front of a gun, but don't be afraid of the fight. You need help in the fight.
I would also add to that there's also a lot of work that maybe won't necessarily be visible to people of color, and because sometimes those gnarliest trenches for white people are with other white people. So a lot of those front lines are also with your neighbors, your family, your racist family, or your neighbors who don't think they're racist. I mean, I'll tell you, I may have burned a lot of bridges on my block with a angry email to some neighbors recently in our Google group. I don't know if any of my neighbors are on here, but yeah, I had to call out a neighbor and do some talking about some racist housing history in Alameda. But like, that's a big part of it here. And that's, I think for a lot of white people, I know that's some of the hardest stuff. Like, okay, yeah, you can show up to the march and have a sign, but can you have those conversations with your neighbor who you have a nice, polite relationship with, and you don't really want to make trouble, right? So sometimes that making that trouble is having those conversations you really would rather avoid because it's just not polite, or it's, and maybe it's with coworkers, maybe it's with, families at school or whatever, but really being willing to go there with other white people. And that might not actually be witnessed by people, right? Like, and if you want to let Robbie know that you did it, cool, like, but like that work is, I think, some of the most powerful work. And when we talk about like dismantling white supremacy, to me, a lot of that work happens in white spaces.
Yeah.
John said,
go ahead, John.
John said about listening to acknowledge points made and ask follow-up questions specifically about those points. And Sherilyn said that listening can be about educating yourself, and suggested that folks read How to Be an Anti-Racist and White Fragility. Deborah asked, can you speak to the intersection of defunding the police and racial justice and what that means at the polls?
Ooh. Robbie, you want to take that one?
Read that question again. My daughter was distracted.
Yeah. No. So Deborah asked, can you speak to the intersection of defunding the police and racial justice, and then what that means at the polls?
Okay. Like I said, I'm very honest. I don't hide my stuff. I am not necessarily. I need to hear more about defund the police. Okay. And that might not be a popular statement to say, but it's true. My brother is a cop. 26 years. I know a lot of cops. I know there's some good ones, there's some bad ones. I've heard all the stories, but my brother's an amazing cop, amazing person, and I've met other ones. I've met some really lousy people, really lousy businessmen, really lousy store people. I've seen people, for me, I can answer that question. For me, defund the police, let's look at unpackaging it and then seeing how we can use that money for mental health, for other services that are needed in the communities. Because I deal with that every day on the front line. I see what's out there every day. I don't have a luxury job. I'm in the trenches in Alameda, okay, where a lot of people don't want to go. So I won't say to defund police. I will say, and I want to make this loud and clear. I don't see the killing of Black people as just a police issue. We've been getting killed since we got here, but not just policemen. We look at those children on here, right? Let's look at those gentlemen that were on that truck that shot Ahmaud Arbery for just running, doing something he did for practice. They were not cops. We can go back to what the imitation. Oh man, it's so many people. It has not always been cops. So I want to be clear when I answer, in my answer, that this conversation for me about Blacks getting killed, murdered, hung, lynched, everything and above, the women being raped, killed over and over and over since we got here. It ain't just the police doing that. So I'm not going to just lump it all into the police. These are white people in all forms of walk of life, all careers, so forth. Defund the police, I would say I do want to look at where this money is being spent. I work at APC, and it's a large Black community, probably we're all of us there. And I see my students coming home from school and they're on the curb on the sidewalk coming from the liquor store, from the police. I do see that. I'm not going to say that doesn't exist. I see people, police get called for people having mental, emotional breakdowns, and the police not having any clue of what to do, because guess what, y'all? They weren't trained in that. But it's under their umbrella. That's the problem. I think that money should be used for different services to help the community. But I don't want to just say a blanket statement of defund the police until we figure out what actually that looks like. What are those different areas they cover, and how we can find other agencies, other options to fulfill that need. Hope I answered your question. Kate, you want to add anything? You jumped back to me, but you want to jump on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that I think that the idea of defunding the police is going to look different in every community and every city. I think it's a phrase that caught on in a way that surprised a lot of people. And I think there's a difference. I think to me, the idea of defunding the police is what you're speaking to, Robbie, which is looking very carefully at a city, county, state budget, and looking where money is going, looking at how much police and law enforcement are getting, and looking at how that money can be effectively redistributed to support housing, to support social and mental health, or social services and mental health, to support public education, etc. And there's also a difference between the idea of defunding the police and abolishing the police. The abolition movement to abolish police and abolish prisons is something that has been happening and strong in this country for a long time. That's a really radical vision that a lot of activists do hold, but it is different from defunding the police, which acknowledges that a police in communities will still exist, but with a different funding structure. And I think how it connects to the polls, I
agree with you.
Yeah, it connects to the polls because if that is something that you believe in, if you believe in reforming or defunding or challenging police presence and funding in your community, then you want to be looking at the stances that people running in your community take on that issue.
Thank you for the part. I forgot that part, indeed. As far as the polls, I do think, especially in Alameda, it was a big cry for that after the dancing, forget his name right now, but the gentleman dancing in the streets. I know it was a big push for that. Thank you for that clarity, Kate. I wanted to be clear what that defund the police is. I get it from all sorts of folks. And I always ask, what does that mean to you?
Yeah.
Because before I sign that statement, I need to know exactly, the way you just worded it, Kate, I can sign that statement. Yeah. But I just want folks to be careful because I hear it so much. And like you said, it's almost like a hashtag thing now to say. And it can be very dangerous in some communities if it's not clear what that looks like. So thank you for that clarity.
Robbie, Melody also said that you can check in with the different committees to get updates on the defund the police. And then Amanda said, as an ally, I struggle with finding the balance between taking responsibility for dismantling white supremacy because it's white people's job, but also following the lead of BIPOC and not taking up space. Thoughts on how and thoughts of when and how to step up and when to step back.
Yeah, I think that the fact that you're asking that question is an important part of it. And I think the only way, I don't have one clear answer of when to speak up and when. I think it's something that you are going to learn by doing and feeling it out. And I think that if you realize that is important, like, oh, maybe I should step back, then I don't know. I don't know if it's a satisfying answer to say that you're going to know when you experience it. And I immediately think of one of my really good friends who lives in Santa Barbara, who just spoke out on an issue at a city council meeting, and she felt really, really passionate, and she was kind of joining the chorus of people. And then afterward, a good friend of hers that she grew up with, a Latina woman, got really mad at her, called her out, gave her a very, very different perspective. And my friend was horrified at first and then thought through it and realized, she didn't totally agree in the end, but she realized that her speaking up, being another kind of white voice in this chorus, just didn't need to be there, and that she was going to just step back. And even though maybe she didn't totally agree, she just felt like she wanted just to step back. So she kind of had to learn through that experience. And again, I think to your question, Amanda, remembering how much work there is to do amongst white people. And I think sometimes there's, I do a lot of things where I I'm talking specifically to white people, answering white people's questions. And I think some people can raise an eyebrow and be like, well, you know, like, why should we be listening to white people about anti-racism? We should be listening to Black leaders. But I think both of those things need to happen. So I think in making sure that you're doing that work amongst the white people in your community, and having those hard conversations and listening to and following BIPOC leaders. I mean, it's both and, right? If we've learned nothing else this year, this whole time, multiple things can be true at the same time. We can hold multiple truths at once. It can be true that we should be looking to and following these leaders, but we can also be leaders ourselves. And again, you're going to learn when you should step back and be quiet, usually after you've spoken up and either been called out or called in, or kind of realize like, ooh, I maybe should have been quiet there, so.
To that, John said that when someone is using their voice and own agency, maintain space for that, but when someone's being overwhelmed, help them. And then Brooke said, something that helped me understand allyship better was that something has to be put at risk for you or given up. Then that is allyship. And she's asking, is that what you think allyship is?
To have her type more specific of what does she mean by giving up something? She means, can she read the question one more time?
Yeah, I'm just trying to find.
I think that's an interesting formulation of it.
So she said, something that helped me understand allyship better was that something has to be put at risk for you and then given up, and then that is allyship. Yes. So basically saying it's hard.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that allyship has to be hard necessarily, you know, but so here's the thing. I think that if you are truly committing to it, there is something that you are maybe trying to give up a little bit of, which is your sense of supremacy. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe this is like a little deeper esoteric, but you, as a white person, if you are moving into that space where you are wanting to show up, you are wanting to decenter yourself, you are wanting to not act from a position of superiority, that is giving something up. And why do you think people fight so hard to hold on to it? Because it's, you know, it's powerful. It's power. So I think there are certainly instances where you can actually literally risk something, you know, actually put yourself physically at risk, or risk your standing in a community, you know, or risk pissing off your neighbors by really taking a stand. But I also think that there is a deeper way in which you are giving something up, which is that sense of yourself as a white person, as the most important person in the room, or the smartest voice, you know, and that for a lot of white people is actually really quite difficult.
I think I want to add to that. I think
Robbie, just 1 second. She did just because you asked for more. She just typed in privilege into the into the chat box, and she just wrote. And I'm so it's just too bad that we have to do it this way. But she wrote, I don't necessarily mean that it has to be hard, but giving up a sense of white privilege or risking something, like you mentioned, maybe in Boise, posting a Black Lives Matter sign is risky. Can look for different people identities in different locations.
Thank you. Thank you, Brooke. I kind of had a feeling that's where you were going. I know you. So I think for me, and it might have been part of the last question, for me, an ally, as far as giving up, I think what they're going to be giving up is probably a comfort. And maybe that's the privilege you speak of, Kate. Mm-hmm. It's that comfort. Yeah. Because it's not easy and it's not comfortable. For me, as a Black organizer, BIPOC organizer, what would be helpful for me in doing the work is allowing other BIPOC leaders to empower the people, to build the trust that it is safe to step up, and then allies creating, like they say, that safe space for us to step up into. That to me is key. I don't mind busting my butt out here. And it thrills me to see my people be empowered. I think what I would ask for white people is to really create that safe space in which we speak of, or you speak of, that we can step up and start walking side by side. For me, that is the missing part. And so that looks for me, as far as Brooke's question, yeah, the comfortability. because it may not be a cool thing to do with your peers, but it's necessary for what we need to do to move past where we're at right now. That's what I need. As far as hope for me in this city of Alameda, to continue doing this work. I'm gonna tell you guys, I'm at this end of the trail. So this meeting is, yeah, for you guys, but really it is a cry out to Kate. You know, because I say, they're not listening to me. They're not gonna listen to me. They're gonna listen to you, Kate, because you look like them. And it's the same, they're gonna listen to you more than they're gonna listen to me. That's just fact, okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And so what I'm asking of Kate is to put herself kind of in an uncomfortable position. Well, she's cool with it, but asking some of you guys to step up and have those conversations, like Kate's saying. So when the time comes, when we're in a position to actually be empowered, we actually maybe have a little trust. We actually are getting ready to step our foot up on the platform to succeed and be a part truly of this community. Don't be the one to pull it up from underneath us. That's what I'm asking for white folks. And that might be uncomfortable because you might fear risking a little bit of your power. And that's some internal work that needs to be done within white people. Because I try to be, I'm about unity. Sarah knows, she's one of my good, she knows, I preach unity till I'm blue in the face. My daughter knows unity. That's my message. We cannot have unity unless white folks start fixing yourselves. This is a white problem. It's not our problem. You know, I was talking to that mother yesterday. She was saying to me, not to be Dolly, but she's a Dolly woman. She goes, Miss Robbie, and she's crying when her baby's in the car, and she's trying to lift me up. And she says, Robbie, she goes, you know why? She goes, God said that we are the strong ones. She put us up on this level as Black people because we're able to hold this and still rise. And I thought about that. And in my heart, I was like, ooh, there's some groups that want to be oppress even white people. That's not me. I want unity. What I need for you guys on your part for this unity to happen is to step up, get out of your comfort zone, face family, neighbors, whoever you got to face that's talking crap, because there's a lot of little chat groups in Alameda. There's a lot of personal chat groups in Alameda. I'm just going to say it with white folks. And I'm going to tell you guys something. And I'm speaking to some of you directly because you're part of those groups. Your group is not that private. And I hear this stuff. And it's heartbreaking. That's what breaks my heart. So what is the uncomfortability? Is that when you're in that chat group and people are talking mess, you say, hey, cut it out. This is what we're supposed to be about. So you may lose out. You may lose some friends. You may get uncomfortable. At this point, I really don't care about comfortability. If we're gonna be in Alameda and we're gonna have everyone belongs here, and that's just not being a bunch of bull crap, we got some work to do. And white folks, y'all need to lead the work. I don't think I would trust this conversation with anybody but Kate because you've been doing this. And I know you're doing the walk. You don't put yourself on a pedestal, even though you could. Some of y'all need to come off the pedestal and get real and do some self-reflecting. And you can pass that message to other ones that are not on this chat. That's what we need. That's what we need to sacrifice, I guess, of. In Alameda, there's some deep-rooted racism in this town. I don't care how many little subcommittees and all that stuff folks are trying to create. If folks' minds and hearts do not change, all we're all doing is lip service. So hopefully I had to get that out. I don't know if they answer anybody's question, but I need to get that out because that is what is boiling in this town today. You know, we can be on an island, the sun is beautiful, but there are people crying. There are grown black men crying in this town. And ain't nobody listening to them. They call me. And I'm supposed to still trust white people in this community. I'm supposed to still trust white people in this nation because I'm about unity. So I need you guys to step up, step out. I call you guys all in every single month. Other folks want to separate, segregate. Sarah, back me up. I call people in every month. I'm calling you in. You may have made a mistake yesterday. You might have made a mistake 10 minutes ago. You might have did one of the things Kate said. Right now, what time is it? I don't care. You're here. You're listening. I call you in. Let's do this together, you guys, or I can't do it. And Marilyn, talking to you too, Mayor Ashcraft. I'm gonna talk to you directly for a moment. I respect, you came to the events, you were powerful with the youth. I sat in that meeting with you and the police chief and former police chief, and the officers, and we sat with those youth. We gave them a space to speak. They held on to that. They saw BIPOC being heard. They need follow through. You got your committees? Great. Let's get these committees going. I know Melody mentioned the committee. Great. Committees are great. But Kate, you mentioned we need every division in this town to look like the community it serves. And I'm going to tell you, if all the BIPOC came together, we outnumber the whites. So let's start sprinkling some color throughout some of these seats throughout this town.
Marilyn, did you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you both, Robbie and Kate, for this powerful session and all the wisdom. Robbie, one of the follow-ups to our dialogue that you helped me put together with the youth is that we've continued to meet with them, the youth activists of Alameda. They want a youth commission in Alameda, and at the next city council meeting on October 6th, we're going to present that proposal to the council, and I hope that the colleagues, my colleagues on the council, will be supportive. But you know those young people; they're powerful. They give me hope at a time when we need hope. But thank you both so much for, like I said, your wisdom. I'm a note taker, and I've been taking notes on both of you, so lots to think about. Thanks.
So thank you, Marilyn, for doing that work with the youth. And presenting that, doing work that hasn't been done in Alameda before. I want to acknowledge that. Like I acknowledge when you showed up to some of those rallies and you spoke, and it wasn't comfortable. People were here sitting here to me, but you stayed true. And I might not agree with everything and what you might do. I don't agree with anybody, everything you do. But I trust and I respect that you have been, for the youth, that you have been consistent with them. So I do want to acknowledge that, and that's not talking politics. I'm looking at you. Yeah, you're a politician. You're the mayor. But for me, that speaks of your spirit. And that's what I attach to, because this is more than politics, you guys. This is not even politics, honestly. Someone asked about the poll. This is a humanitarian problem. This is not, this is not a political problem. It's humanitarian. This has happened way before Trump ever was born.
Yeah. And I mean, Kate, your words about the arc of history, and it just keeps circling. Yeah, darn it, it does. So here we are, but we've got to do something about it. And the youth, I mean, they bring me joy every time I meet with them. And they're so much more advanced than I was at their age. They email me, Mayor, we think it's time for another Zoom meeting with you. Can we schedule something? So we do. But like I said, on October the 6th, we're going to consider, and we met with them to see what kinds of topics do they want. And I mean, they're deep. They're deep and they're wide about the things that they want to cover. So
and then what they need. Thank you for Marilyn for showing up for them. We need all the rest of the folks at Alameda to show up for them.
Yeah. And I know we're not supposed to make this political. I'm going to have to drop off shortly because the East Bay Women's Political Alliance is considering an endorsement of yes on Measure Z. So I've put in my request. So that's as political as I will be, but I'll leave it to you. Anyway, thank you so much, both of you, and everyone else for showing up. Thanks.
Okay.
Question, Sarah?
Yeah, they keep coming in, Robbie. I think I probably have like 20 more. John said, can you speak to the difference between performative and real-time allyship that transcends misinterpretation of personalities or cultural differences?
Okay.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, again, like there's just, it's about, that transcends different personality. I mean, we got to be willing to listen to and consider perspectives from people who maybe don't think the same way as us, that you know, and I keep coming back to this thing with performative allyship. Just don't perform, just do it, be the real person, and show up in the right way. I mean, Robbie, what you said, I really just want to go back and kind of highlight, like extract and highlight and pinned at the top what you said, like, this is a white problem, right? This is a white problem. And to use another comparison, which I do only because I think sometimes it can help people like kind of think about it in a different way. In some ways, it makes me think of, you know, the way in which we think about sexual assault, and that we've spent a lot of time teaching girls self-defense and teaching women how to behave and how to not get raped. What we need to be doing is teaching boys how to respect women, and teaching boys how to not rape. Right? We put a lot of energy into self-defense for young women, and it's if we are not addressing sexual violence and misogyny in young men and grown men and boys, we are fighting half a battle. And it's the same with this. You're more than half a battle. This is a white problem. These are conversations for white people to be having, and figuring out the best way to be an ally and show up. That is going to come with trial and error, and the error is difficult, but that's where we learn. And so white people should be talking, we should be talking to each other about how best to show up, not always, you know, and again, maybe messing up, and then trying to learn from that. But this is a white problem for us to solve, by listening, by having conversations, and by doing.
And can I add something to that term performative, because it's coming up a lot this year. I guess it's a new trendy term or something. I wasn't aware of. I want to be clear, you know, there are some people, and because I get this question, people want to okay for stuff because people are calling it performative, and so they're made to feel bad. And sometimes it's a white person calling it on another white person, and you know, that seems to be the problem. It's almost like that white person calling it thinks they're still superior to now down other white people for trying. For me, when it comes to performative, there are some folks that, you know what, the way they express themselves is through arts. And if you want to express yourself, free to Black people and stop killing Black people, and you want to do it in a dance style, or if you want to do it in an art form, or if you want to do it in spoken word, or if you want to do whatever, do it. As long as it's speaking truth and you're not just faking it. For me, it's the faking part. And I don't know, when people use, maybe you can help me, Kate, when people use that term performative, are they saying that the person is being fake, or that it's not okay to be creative? Can you explain that to me? Because I'm not clear on that.
My understanding of it, and I agree, Robbie, I think it's a term that kind of I started seeing this year. My understanding of it is that it comes out of a lot of social media, out of white people who maybe had not previously expressed support for Black Lives Matter or racial justice, doing some kind of post about it, that just seemed like they were kind of just trying to perform support, you know, so maybe they like have a cute t-shirt in their Instagram post, but again, then they never mention it. And I think we see that a lot too around businesses, especially this summer, where, you know, suddenly a big corporation, you know, Pepsi's like does an Instagram post and they're like, we really care about Black lives. And everybody's like, what the fuck are you doing for Black lives, Pepsi? You know, or whatever company. So it's a performance of showing how woke you are without actually backing it up with real action. And I think you're right in that a lot of times it is white people calling each other out. And what happens is that there becomes an anxiety too. Now there's this fear, this kind of like false fear of not wanting to do something because you're worried that someone will accuse you of being performative. I get that question a lot. And my answer to that is just get over yourself. Again, if you are doing something and it comes from your heart and you believe in it and you are showing up for someone and it is they're receiving it, then great. If someone calls you performative, but you know you showed up, then don't worry about it. If your biggest fear right now is being accused of being a performative activist, then you're good. That's part of white privilege.
Thank you for saying that, because I was like, because I get a lot of white people calling me as if they need permission. And I'm just like, thank you for even thinking to do it. Who told you that was performative? So thank you for putting this, it was a new thing for me. So thank you for clearing that up for me as well.
Robbie, Deborah said, it's like jumping on the bandwagon because it's a fad. John says, posturing without substance. Ryan said, exactly, Kate, look at the board of Pepsi. Does it follow their advertising? Okay, 2 comments. Claire said, having some cultural humility goes a long way. And then another comment on the youth where Claire works, the students are driving change and the leadership is listening. It's truly humbling. We would be stupid not to support the Alameda youth activists. And then Rosie said, I feel conflicted by 2 pieces of advice to allies. Follow the voice of Black people and also to put in the work, show up so that the Black community doesn't have to put in the work. But I am not feeling that there's a strong lead or voice to follow. People are wary, justifiably so, of white people organizing Black Lives Matters events, but isn't it too much to ask to the Black community to always have to tell us what to do or to organize or to lead?
Can I answer that one? Because I get that one a lot. You know, I like communication. I like collaboration. If, yes, you know, it is tiring. I don't mind doing it. I'm thankful for Kate that you've stepped up and you do it well. To keep trying to inform white people or to teach them what to do or what we need to do, it does, because it's really heavy, as this week has shown, just lifting the Black and BIPOC community. That in itself is a lot of work. What would be great is, like I said earlier, as we're doing that work to get us to trust the city, the community, whatever, is if a white person would email me and say, Ken, you know, I have this and this, can we collaborate? To me, that key word for me is collaboration. It lessens some of the work on me, because honestly, I got ADHD, y'all. I'm not good at this. Sarah makes me look good. I have very bad logistic and all that kind of stuff. I can show up at a mic and I can share from my heart and spirit. But there's a particular person, I'm gonna bust her out, but she helps me, besides Sarah's a great help, that also helps me with logistics of doing stuff. That helps me do the work. So then I can stand up and actually do the in-person, the empowering piece of work. So for me, collaboration with an ally would be great. Them taking over some of the stress of it would be great. They have ways of getting into certain things. I've been blessed. I've been doing a lot of work here that Maryland, a lot of the folks trust me to give me this venue, because I can totally go rogue on this thing and go which way. And be honest, I was a prayer yesterday and today that I didn't do that, because it was on my heart and spirit to just go rogue on here, and I'm glad I didn't. Because I want to be positive. And I think for us just to have these conversations and you guys to show up is part of you doing some work. You guys did some work today. You know, and maybe, let me say, maybe you only got maybe one thing out of today. I thank you for showing up and being willing to do some work. And today your work was to show up humbly, to listen, to possibly be really, really, really uncomfortable, possibility to be, you know, yelled at because there's so much anger right now. And so I just want to acknowledge before our time is up, thank you for taking that risk. You did some work today. I need you to continue that work. Email me. I'm very approachable. If you want to do this work, man, you know, Kate lives around the corner from me. So, you know, that's really, that's really easy, you know, as a comrade. You know, I do consider you a comrade more than an ally.
You can email me too if you question didn't answer
She's already put it out there. She was on Conan O'Brien, y'all. So she's willing to have that talk. Keep us busy with good talk, good trouble. That's what we need to do. But I'm really about collaborating. So if it's on your heart as a white person, even if you have this much to give, don't be ashamed or afraid to email and say, this is what I have. I'm gonna call you and I'm gonna accept it with gratitude. Because there's so many other folks that are not even doing that. Okay.
What I would add real quick to that, though, that question, because it's really important question. I don't think there's not one answer, right? And to me, part of the discomfort for white people of this work is the actual process of grappling with those things that feel confusing and contradictory, where you're not sure how to be, right? So I actually think it's true that we both need to show up and do the work and come up with stuff on our own, and also listen and take the lead from BIPOC communities. Are those things in contradiction? Maybe a little bit, but I don't think so. I think that they can coexist, and it might be hard and awkward and uncomfortable for you to figure that out, but that work is also part of this process, right? There's not one easy answer here, and that's okay. Like that's part of what makes this work challenging. But it's important, I think, for white people also to be willing to figure things out on their own and to think things through, to Google things. And that's, again, to go back to how do we listen. It's also taking the time to educate yourself and really try to kind of work through those questions, and try to figure that out, even if there is not one clear answer.
Yeah. But I do still want to say that welcome. I mean, I think both you and I, one of the beauties of our work that we do separately and now luckily together, is we both are humble enough to hear suggestions. Like, I'm not going to act like I know, and I don't know all the ways to empower people, empower anybody. So, and I know there's some folks that have some ways that I haven't tried before. I don't care, what nationality you are, help me. Give me some tools because right now I feel like this thing, the end of the trail, I need to find some tools, because what I'm feeling is the tools I've been using aren't quite working. So if you have some tools in whatever profession, whatever practice, whatever you do, it might even be pertaining to this, but you can see how it could be helpful for this. Please email me and help me. Yep.
That's also how white people, the thing about privilege. I don't believe that you can relinquish privilege. You can't give it up. I can't give up this white skin. The best thing that I can do with my privilege, all the privileges I have, is leverage them in service of communities who don't have those privileges, right? It's not about being ashamed of your privilege or giving it up or, not wanting it. No, it's the opposite. It's how do I actually leverage this? And you're right, Robbie, sure, maybe people will listen to me more. I'm a pretty white lady, and that's one of my privileges, and I can leverage that and get people to listen to me, and I can say hard things that they might ignore coming from other folks. That's a shitty aspect of this world we live in, but it's real, and it's a thing that I try to do. So I agree, what your skill set is, your privileges, what you have, and maybe it's money, maybe it's your education, maybe it's your political power. How do you leverage what you have in service of others?
And I always say, being native of this land and also indigenous are both here in Africa. I always say white folks have ridden on our backs since they got here. Ridden our backs hard, and it's time for us to get a piggyback. Time for us to get a piggyback ride, because we're tired and you guys are still nice and fresh and strong. And so, help us do this walk, you guys. I can't say that any other way, because we will not make any change that sustains. Where's Mia? Mia? That is my lifelong statement. You said it one time, and that is my lifelong statement. Change that sustains. Because I don't need any Band-Aid or any quick little fix that next week is going to be ripped off and is rawer than ever. So we need folks to make change that sustains, and that's going to be by unifying, period. So, anyone else?
So many more. So I don't know, I guess we'll just keep going through the questions. Two things, Robbie, I'm going to put your email in the chat, your Gmail. Kate, do you have a Gmail I can put in the chat, or an email?
Yeah, it's Kate Schatz at Gmail, KATESCHATZ. I just forgot how to spell my last name real quick, at Gmail.
Okay, great. I'll put both.
And I have just a couple more minutes. I have 3 kids behind this door who are screaming and getting louder and louder. And
and then Robbie, as long as you can stay on, and we'll just keep going until we have to go. And I wanted to really quick also ask Councilmember Vela to say she had some remarks to say. So I think you're unmuted.
I'm unmuted. Hi, everyone. We can go with first names. It's Malia. I just wanted to put it out there, Robbie, to your last point about change that sustains and things that we can do. I mean, some small, I think that they're small actionable items here in Alameda are right now, when you and I were messaging about this yesterday, there's the Community Service Awards, our annual Community Service Awards. And I think something that we can do is to acknowledge the work that's been done. A lot of these organizations have been here. Black Achievers Alliance has been here doing the work. Alameda Youth Activists are doing the work. And I think that it's super important that we see a number of people. I think it's an act of allyship to formally acknowledge the work that's been done. It's not just about creating the new group or having the new action, but acknowledging the work being done by our Black and BIPOC communities and Black and BIPOC leaders like you, Robbie. And so I just want to put it out there because I think many times one thing that happens in spaces of privilege and power is that people know about, I'm an attorney and I like to call it a prestige core profession, meaning that in many ways, like all of the accolades matter, right? They matter because they build your reputation. And the way that you find out the things that you have to do and why it's such a hard industry for people of color and Black people to break into is that we have been systemically excluded for a long time. And so we don't have that degree of mentorship of like, hey, nominate this person or hey, speak up for this person. So one thing that I would like to come out of today that I think is a small thing and it's incremental, but I think it's super powerful is for folks that are on this call to acknowledge the work being done by Black Achievers Alliance and Alameda Youth Activists, and to actually see some nominations come in. It was in the local paper. It's on our city website. It's super easy to nominate people. You can nominate people and also nonprofit groups. We see a lot of the same groups getting nominated and renominated every year. And many times it's not our communities of color and our Black community leaders. And so I just want to put it out there, and I would just be super excited to see a lot of nominations coming in. And I just don't think that the BIPOC community needs to go out there asking for other people to nominate them and support them formally. So I want to do that today for them. And I also just want to put out there that we have, one of our things that we've been doing is also trying to you know, and I think it's really difficult when we talk about the BIPOC community. I just want to highlight the Black strife and the Black struggle, and that it's not the same for being BIPOC versus being Black, and the strife and the feelings around that. And so there's so many layers of allyship, and we've talked about it, but I just want to acknowledge that and just really thank you, Robbie, for the work that you're doing and for all that you carry on your shoulders. And I have so much love for you and respect for the work that you've done. And just, I know it's really hard to stay strong through all of this, but I don't know the strength that you've had to rely on for specifically being a Black woman. And I just want to acknowledge that and acknowledge the vulnerability that you've shown today and every day. And just, and also just thank both of you for acknowledging Sia. I think of her every day. And I think she's brought so many of us together, and it's just, it's one of those things. And again, and I feel like we didn't really acknowledge her during her lifetime here in Alameda, and the work that she did. And it was really heartbreaking for me that the first time I really felt like she got formal acknowledgement was when we adjourned in her memory one night. And so after she had passed away, and I want to put it out there. You talked earlier about not just talking about that Black strife and historical figures, but like the work that's being done now. And so just to loop it back in, there's ways that we can honor the work that's being done. We can give it formal praise and acknowledgement while it's happening, and we can support it and give to it. And it's super important. And also Black Achievers Alliance takes donations. They're a nonprofit. Open up your wallets, people. I just want to put it out there. So thank you both from the bottom of my heart for sharing today. And Robbie, just every minute of every day of everything that you do and that you put into this community. I just want to acknowledge and thank that.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. I forget that. Thank you.
Robbie, Lily had said that
Yeah,
when using the term BIPOC, do you think that takes away from the actual reality of Black lives? It's talking about what Malia was just saying. She said that she thinks that Black people who are the ones being suppressed and murdered is not the same as other people of color.
Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt you guys. I do need to get off. I had told my girlfriend that I'd be done at 3, and so I don't know if you can hear it, but it's very loud out there. So
tell her thank you very much for sharing her with and help me out today.
Yeah, thank you everybody for listening. This is really one of the most gratifying conversations. I mean, I talked for a lot, not the part where I was talking, but the part where you were talking, Robbie, and the part where folks are asking questions. But please stay in touch. My email's in there. And but thank you everybody for taking the time to show up. Yeah, appreciate you so much. Okay.
So back to that question. It was, let me say, does the saying BIPOC take away from the Black struggle? Was that the question pretty much?
Yep.
You know, if it was my creation, honestly, it'd probably be like Ebok. I don't know, because I'm 3/4 native of this land, and I have family still on reservation, and most of my family were slaughtered in the trail. So if you ask me that, I would even reverse to put the indigenous in front, because we get no voice. Let me just put it that way. Do I think putting Black in front, Black indigenous people of color? You know, for me, you would have to be under the rock to not know that Blacks struggle in America. Now with all the social media and news. If you don't realize that, then you're choosing not to realize that. I think for me, it brings unity, because in my world, we need the BIPOC community, the Black indigenous people of color, to be empowered together, so that we have numbers, and so our voice is louder than the oppressor, is the way I look at it. I don't think it takes away personally from the Black struggle. There's some conversations I say Black, and there's some conversations I say BIPOC. It depends on who I'm facing. When I'm thinking about Alameda, and that's basically who I'm talking to here, I say BIPOC because we do outnumber the whites on this island, but yet our voice is not heard. So for me, I guess the answer would be no. If you need me to remind you, Black people are dying. Black people are getting murdered. Continuously. So just in case anyone had a doubt about that piece, Black struggle, yes.
Robbie, Marilyn said she had to leave, but she wanted to thank you and Kate for having the conversation. And she wanted to just note that she had said October 6th, the Youth Commission is coming to council. It's October 20th. So that'll be on the agenda October 20th to create a Youth Commission in Alameda. And then, should we set like a hard stop? What do you want to do? I have literally 15 more questions.
I'll be honest with you. This is saving my life right now.
Yeah.
This is because without doing this work, you guys, I mean, Sherilyn's on here. It's my ex-wife. Wait, Sherilyn. I called her, you know, she's my ex-wife, but she's known me the longest of anybody on this island. And I called her and crying, because without doing this work, I don't know what my purpose is. I believe this is a calling for my tradition, Great Spirit, and the ancestors. And so I'm on here as long as people are going to stay on here to answer your question.
All right, well, let's keep going. Okay, so Amanda asked that we talk about the idea that it's not just who you vote for as an ally, but what policies you support, and maybe that they're not obviously about race, but that they're about disparities and fixing that is part of being an ally.
Is that a statement or a question?
Well, she wanted to, she asked that we talk about the idea that it's not who you vote for, but your policies that you support, I think is the kind of the concept.
You know, don't make me go rogue, as I've been kind of instructed to stay away from this piece, as I have strong beliefs on this. And if you follow Black Achievers Alliance, I don't need to put it out there what my beliefs on it as far as politics in this town. I do believe in there's a lot of different layers to that. There is definitely how, you know, if you're looking at it and comment how they vote, sure, you look how people vote. if people, what they've stood for. For me, I do look at now, because our youth have said they need people that looks like them to be in leadership. So I do look at that. I also look at, you can get, be careful with this. You can get candidates that are BIPOC, and people may say, oh, they don't have any experience. Well, guess what? They may not have the experience you need because they never given an opportunity to have that experience. So that's what we're talking about, creating that platform, that safe space for folks to rise up to have that experience. So I think for me, it's many layers. I'm definitely looking at how people vote, and I'm a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff. I like doing, I think Kate mentioned Google earlier. I Google, I ask friends, I ask people in the community. I say, do your research. Just because someone may have been there or you see them rallies, whatever, does not mean they're the candidate that's best for the movement that we're trying to have. Did I answer that question, Sarah?
Yeah, totally.
Carefully?
Yep, great, very professionally. John said, how proficient are we at... John said, how proficient are we at discerning between confrontational and assertiveness when a BIPOC individual is transparent about their experience?
Ooh, thank you for this one. Folks label us really quick. And when I say there's a lot of private little chat groups in Alameda with white folks, I mean it. And it's been heartbreaking hearing some of the labels being put on us, because we are having a voice now, or we are stepping up. And to be honest with you guys, we are passionate people. Sometimes people, I tell people, I'm not mad, I'm just excited, I'm fired up, spirit is bubbling, woo! And that's different than maybe another culture. So a lot of times we get misidentified or mislabeled. Recently, thank goodness I do have allies that there are some of these groups, and I get reports back, and they label me right now as an angry Black woman. Where ever heard that before? That's my label in town right now, angry Black woman. And I'm okay with that because I'm angry about what's happened to my people. I'm angry about a woman being shot peacefully, did nothing. I'm angry about that. I'm angry about that we watched George Floyd die in front of us. What was it, 8 minutes? And they still haven't been charged. I don't know if I'm Black, I'm an angry woman for the injustices on human beings. I'm humanitarian. But we do get labeled a lot, I know Black men get labeled, Black aggressive men. And so I appreciate that question because it happens so much. And even from folks that say that they support us, you know what I mean? Please don't misunderstand passion, spirit, desperation as something that is trying to be aggressive. I don't want to fight anybody, man. I'm about unity, but I won't be walked over either. So, John, did I answer your question? Okay, thank you.
Did you not? I can't see him. I only have you on my screen. Okay.
I know him and I deal with this. I'm looking at this screen.
Yeah.
And I know him and I deal with this. We're both passionate people, and we stand behind what we're saying. We both are revolutionaries. We have a stance, and I was raised up to have a voice, and I teach my daughter that. I don't care if society says her voice or her lives matter. My daughter knows her voice matters. And it does get misunderstood sometimes.
Next question, Robbie. Ezra asked, to your point of being allies for some people and not allies for other, when the Black community, which is not monolithic, has different messages or aims, how do I, as a white person, navigate that and try to be an authentic ally?
You cut in and out. Can you repeat that question?
I'm so sorry. So the question is, to your point of being allies for some people and not for others, when the Black community, which is not monolithic, has different messages or aims, how do I, as a white person, navigate that and try to be an authentic ally?
Thank you for that question. And I think Kate I think she might have touched on that earlier. There are different people, there's different styles, and there's different ways people are going to show up. I can say what, me as a Black organizer in Alameda and what I'm trying to do in Empower the People, I can say what isn't, like she said, an ally for me. An ally for me is someone that's consistent. It doesn't matter what level that ally is if they're consistent. It means if Black people, I'll say Black people, if Black people are stepping up, it means support that step up. It means even if you don't agree or think like they may be the right person, don't be the one to pull the rug so quickly. I think an ally is for me is very, because you know, honestly, I don't want to put anyone in harm's way. Like I don't want to be in harm's way. But I will say, consistency builds trust.
And unmuted, so.
Consistency builds trust. And right now in this town, you know, there's not a lot of trust. So I don't know if I answered this question, but I think in a nutshell, consistency and not pulling the rug.
Great. And School Board President Mia Banta, did you, I think I unmuted you. No, there you go.
Thank you. I just want to honor Robbie for bringing together this conversation and bringing us into this space. I think one of the things that we need to focus in on is what it means to act as an ally right now, and particularly around the question of, is it okay to be able to support policies and not necessarily support BIPOCs? And for me, you cannot replicate the experience of being a person of color, a BIPOC, a black woman, in my case, a Black Latina, and you need that experience to be able to frame and situate the policies that you create. So yes, I think there's benefit to be able to support and lift up BIPOC leaders in our community, and it is not the same thing to be able to support the policies because they're framed by your. I think the personal is political at the end of the day, and so your experience shapes the way that you engage, the way that you interact, the way that you ultimately frame the policies that you're supporting, and without that experience, you can get something, but you get something very different if you have the ability to be able to bring that experience into the room, particularly into the rooms where it happens, particularly where we have not been before.
Yeah. Thank you for that. She's sounded so much smarter than I did. Thank you for that, Mia, because that's, yeah, pretty much what she said. I say ditto. And that's when we get back to representation matters. You know, it speaks volumes. And, you know, when we look at leadership across the nation, we have to do, as people of color, Black people especially, we have to do triple the amount to get recognized. You can be in the, I mean, I left the corporate world, you know, and I was a workaholic. I advanced very young for 27, maybe EP. But because I was taught I had to do triple the amount a white person in the next cubicle had to do. It served me well. I was successful, but it also woke me up to reality really quick. I had that conversation with my daughter, Lala. You know, I tell her, baby, you got to do more. You know, yeah, that's what's been said, but you have to do more because you are a Black person. And it hurts my heart to have that conversation with a 10-year-old. I mean, not having that conversation with her, you know, her life is at risk. I fear for her. But thank you, Mia, for that, because yeah, representation matters. I want my daughter to see people that's what Black Achievers is about, that we can strive beyond the pain, beyond the oppression. We strive, y'all, we succeed. We're like the rose in the concrete.
That's beautiful. I've never heard that, the rose in the concrete. Chrissy said, you have a lot of people just saying thank you. Some folks have to hop off. They said, sorry, they're leaving early. I didn't say, but they're leaving. They've hung out there. Now we're approaching 2 hours. But Chrissy said she wanted to thank you for sharing your truth. Lily asked, she says, I feel that our kids' Black friends need to know that our kids, my kids and your kids, are allies, especially now that they have seen firsthand, or if they have not, how do we talk to them about it? My children have seen racism firsthand at our playgrounds. Do they announce they are on their side? How can they be better allies to their friends? I think it's important to teach our children. We need to talk about it with our kids and our kids' friends. How do we facilitate that and keep it going? I don't want to have one conversation and leave it on the back burner.
Thank you, Lily, for that. And you know, I know your girls. They're truly having kids like you. And I'm thankful for you in my life and in Lala's life. You know, like you said, conversation. You know, I have these conversations over at the APC with my youth because I'm about empowering. And the only way that change that sustains is going to happen is if our youths take the baton. You know, some of us may not have grew up with the truth that we are all the same. We're all one spirit, in my belief. Some of us were taught different than that. And we're trying to grow from those teachings, whether it was purposefully or not. Some of us got that belief of that. And that you have to unlearn that behavior. And so we can teach the kids now, you know, that's less work we got to do in the future. And so I'm all for kids are my life. As if y'all don't know them, kids are my number one. I dedicate my life to empowering kids that hurt. And so if anyone wants to join on board and create a group like that with the young kids, elementary age, whew, let's do it. Because then we're planting seeds for our future. You know, I'm old. You know, like I told my dad, I'm old. I'm hoping I can pass the baton to Lala. So I tried, you know, but I'm old. And I've tried a lot of ways, and some of my ways are not working. And so I think empowering our youth to work together, unified once again, to start healing that now. And so then they can figure out some tools. They're smarter than I am. Figure out some tools to make some true change. So if you have kids on here, have those conversations. If you don't have them, they're going to learn them on the playground anyway. It's like those other conversations they have. They're going to learn from other kids on the playground that may not have the right teaching. Have those conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Robbie, I was just going to say, I've had that conversation with my son, and I've talked him to stand up, to say something. When you see something that's not right, to say something. And he's told me several times about experiences that he's had. And it's heartbreaking to hear what kids say, but to talk to our kids and to say, if you see something that's not right, if somebody says something that's not right, you have to stand up and you have to say something. That's how you use your privilege. So, okay. Kimberly said, given the ruling last week, it is absolutely human to be furious and exhausted. What I hear from right-wing supporters is they are in fear of the violence, rioting, looting. As a result, now attribute to Black Lives Matter and as a result now attribute Black Lives Matter to terrorism, which I do not believe. How do we navigate the fine line of honoring and expressing anger without diluting its message by propagating more violence?
Stop killing us. I'm sorry. You know, my life has not always been, you know, I've made some choices in my life, and I've been involved with some groups that the root was hate. And it came from pain. And it came from being tired of seeing what I'm still seeing today. I've just grown up. You know, I can't, you know, back in my day, yeah, I participated because there was so much anger that raged inside of me. No one was listening. And every verdict proves that our lives does not matter to a lot of folks. So I really don't care if, you know, now today at 55 years old, I'm not want to be out there rioting anymore or doing all that stuff, but I don't judge them because I've been there. And I know that's coming from desperation, loss of hope. You're not listening to my words. Maybe you'll listen to this. I can't ask the young people that say, Miss Robbie, I'm going over to Oklahoma. I said, just be safe. Because I'm angry. And I can't say, if I didn't have, I have tools now. I call my ex-wife, I call some other friends, I talk to Sarah. You know, I had to diffuse myself. But I've learned tools to do that. And I'm still angry. See what I'm saying? So it's too deep to think that it's going to be a peaceful conversation. It's not peaceful when you shoot someone while they sleep, or choke somebody out, or hang somebody, or shoot somebody, or da 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 da. There's nothing peaceful about that. You know, it's amazing how we're always called to be the peaceful ones, but then yet we're called savages and so forth. It's amazing to me. So to answer your question, Kimberly, I love you for the question because I know your heart, but I don't really think I think whatever they want to do, they're expressing their pain. That's all that is, man. They're not thinking about, you know, and let's be clear, there is a difference between protesters' riot to those looters that cause a lot of the problems. Yeah, I've been out there and I've seen it. So we got to be clear with that, because that does get mixed up in the mix. And so easily it is to call us the bad ones. And so, yeah, let's throw the looting in there because they must be stealing because they're Black. And so it's very hard to be peaceful. You know, I'm a peaceful person. I work for spirit, and it's hard for me. So I don't have any expectations for people. I don't want people to hurt people. I don't want people to harm people. You know, but even that I can't judge. You know what I'm saying? This is scary times. This is scary times. And I would be lying to you if I didn't feel in my spirit that a race war was coming of some sort. I would be lying. It's all set up to be so. I mean, look at everything. It's set up to be a race war. I mean, Civil War never really ended. It just shifted a little bit underground. But now it's up on the ground again. So
Kimberly responded also, Robbie, to say that's the issue because those two issues are getting collapsed. And then Melody also responded when you were speaking to say that that's a problem when when things are more important than people, like buildings are more important than life.
Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? I mean, I'm just asking everyone in this group and looking at you. Isn't that amazing that I go back to Brianna? What was it, 7 bullets into her body? And the only charge was from a bullet that went into the wall?
Yeah. John said also there's a difference between
that tells
peaceful.
You the value.
Yeah. John also said there's a difference between peaceful and nonviolent protest is supposed to be disruptive.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the youth. When I was with the youth and I this summer, I mean, there was like thousands of people out there, even COVID, you know, and I had called Sarah, then didn't have a connection. I said, please call the police, tell them not to show up. I got this. I got this. I don't need the police to show up. And we had no incidents. All those people, thousands, man. Not one incident happened. We peaceful marched. We gave our message. We dispersed with air hug because it was COVID. But it was a peaceful protest. There's ways of doing it. But it's hard to do it when it's consistent. We've had so much consistency with this. It's like, boom, we had Ahmad, we had George, we had Rihanna, we had, so many just this year, back to back to back to back to back. So it's just like a fuse. I mean, what do you expect people to do? Yeah.
Robbie, Ashley said, in thinking about listening to and elevating BIPOC voices with the awareness that Black people are not a monolith and that there are political differences within the community, how do you make decisions around political activism when that means amplifying some BIPOC voices to the exclusion of others?
I can give you an example of that without saying the politics stuff. Went through that recently because Black Achievers Alliance is endorsing certain candidates. The Black Achievers Alliance, you know, they're coming more up front. What's happened, it has not always been safe to say you're a Black Achievers Alliance. It's not been safe in Alameda. There are principals, there are business owners, there are moms, paws, there are people who are living below economic, people living above. There's a varied people that are in Black Achievers Alliance. There are core folks that have been a long way on this trail with me, you know what I mean? And the way we do it is open flowing. I believe in spirit flows. So I don't believe in constraints, okay? So with that, there's a lot of different voices that may come through. We communicate, we talk. We look at, okay, at the end of the day, a lot of what Mia kind of pointed out earlier, we look at who are the players. We look at what is it that we need? What is the most important thing we need for our community? Honestly, that's this particular one. There was a little problem, but that was the guiding force. What is the emergency need right now for us in Alameda? And we went from that point. And one of the number one things was representation. One of the things, because like Mia said, it's important that I don't want to hear that you care about me. You know, thanks that you care about what's going on with me, but what's more powerful for me is that you've experienced it and you have a way out of it. And a lot of people in this community, because I've been doing this work, I lived here 20 years, I've probably been doing this work, man, I don't know, over 10 years, I'm sure. I've been doing this work a long time. And it's hard to get people empowered. And so when they see, when their voices can be heard, when they see someone look like them, when they see someone, the reason I'm so effective, I'll just be transparent as I always am. The reason I am so effective at APC, most people I hope know what APC is because my past has not always been squeaky clean who you see today. My past includes, I wouldn't talk to half the people on my screen right now. I would have issues with you for some reason or another. And mostly because your skin wasn't my skin color, to be honest. That was self-healing I need to do. That's why I say it's a white problem with this, because it was a black problem with me, within me, that I had to heal within myself to be united. So it's about conversation. It's about what is best for us overall. We had some disagreements on, only really on one. It was pretty obvious for us, for most of them. One was a little conflict. But then we did, like, you know, that old thing, you know, the pros and cons list. We looked at, okay, how have they showed up? We looked at, okay, what is their experience? And we had conversation. We have conversations because no one else is conversating with us. So I hope I answered your question, Ashley.
Yeah. 3 comments. Brooke said she loves how W. Kamau Bell was promoting the "come get your boy" in reference to white people. It's your responsibility to take down Trump, white people's job. And then John said kids can be allies by simply not moving away from somebody being targeted, also by including them if they're including them in their play. And Kimberly said, thank you all for a thoughtful and powerful discussion. May BIPOC voices be held up and supported, especially for unity. Blessings to you all. And I think this is the last question. It's from Kristen, who said, can you share how changing local housing laws and creating more affordable housing can impact communities of color?
Oh, yeah. I deal with that every day. You know, God, how long do we have on that topic? That's a whole nother Zoom. Z is for Zoom, right? You know, I deal with it every day of folks, you know, on the West End, not just APC, Esperanza, Police, all those areas, you know, those people. I used to live on the East End, and then I moved to that end so I could be among those people, so I can feel it. Read your question one more time. I want to make sure I get, because it came to me. Read the question one more time.
No, let me scroll back down through 5 pages of questions. Can you share how changing local housing laws and creating more affordable housing can impact communities of color?
Now I know why I mentioned Pogies. There's a lot of families in Alameda that are not just BIPOC. They're also, I work with some low-income, social struggling white folks too. Y'all are here too, you know what I mean? And one of the biggest things is they can't get out of where they're at because there's nowhere for them to go. I actually have 3 families right now that want to get out of their current situation, but they have nowhere to go. I barely have somewhere to go. I'm barely making it in Alameda. And so I think opening up housing, creating multi-level, is opening up for these families to stay here in Alameda. You know, it's already expensive. It makes it affordable for all. It gives everyone an opportunity that may not be able to have the income that can buy one of these expensive homes, but they still are part of this community and a vital part of this community. And what I see, man, it breaks my heart. Just about every couple of months, I would say one of the families in the communities I serve, you know, a lot of times from the Kogi area, they move to Antioch, Martinez, because they can afford it. And what it's doing to our demographics and our culture here in Alameda is it's picking it dry. We need those people to stay here to create a vital community that really is everyone belongs here. I wish we can tattoo that along the street like people do Black Lives Matter, because folks forget that statement that is repeated so often. Everyone belongs here. So there should be opportunity for housing for everyone, no matter what your socioeconomic is. Kristen, I hope I answered your question. If not, please ask more to leave me that way, because that's an important question. And I can't talk about it, but we're heading into that just with our voting. We have an opportunity to have, it's so hard for me when I get restricted because I go with flow, but it is, I mean, take a drive around town, you guys. If you've never been to the West End and you live on the East End, drive along APC, and I don't mean going to Rockwell or Bladium or Fraction, whatever else is out there. Drive among those communities, see all the kids out there playing. There are people out there, they're families. And some of those parents are working really hard to get out of that situation. And it's really screwy that there are some folks that want to stop that opportunity from happening. I think I'm gonna leave there because I'll get on that and then I'll end up being in trouble.
And then,
Can I?
Mia? Yeah.
Yeah, I just, in Alameda, we have a history of redlining, which made it so that one part of the island was browner than another part of the island. That overlaid with the lack of affordable housing across the island makes it that there's also overlay of intensity of BIPOC families being located on one part of the island, in addition to many low-income families being located on different parts of the island. So we just keep on, unless we do something radically different, we will just keep on perpetuating the systemic racism that is kind of in the DNA of this city. And nowhere does that play itself out more than in our schools.
Yes.
And so every single day, our students are subjected to the inequities that are now built into our school system because of the difference in the lack of diversity and the differences of experience, particularly around income eligibility, compressed with different kinds of layers and layers of issues that students and families will face, because if we don't do something radically different, we are baking in the racism that caused them to be in schools that are isolated, that are on a particular part of the island, on the West End part of the island. And so we need to do something as a city that's different, so that every child in every single school can have a diverse experience in terms of who's around them, learning with them every single day.
Thank you, Mia.
Completely.
I just want to tag on that, I worked for the district for many years. And I worked majority of the time on the West End and closely now with Ruby Bridges. And let me tell you, there's a lot of things like COVID has been horrific, don't get me wrong. But there's also a lot of things that COVID has dusted, kind of shook up and brought to the light. And one of the things that is brought to the light is an inequity within the school system. And I'm not gonna get too much because I know I'm supposed to be good, but it's an inequity. I see these children struggling. I know children across the island are struggling. But when you got a kid that's coming, that's in a home that may not be the most uplifting, let's say, and they make it. We build an outside classroom for them out there. I never took a break. I couldn't take a break from the kids. I can't, I'm not that person. But to see them come after that amount of time. I had one student, he came back and all he was doing was grunting. Last year, we tell him all the time, stop talking. This year he comes back and he's grunting for a week and a half. That's his talk. And we went right into assessments instead of mental and social connection and help. It is showing up, I get calls from parents like, they don't know what to do at school. And then you're given stuff that is far beyond their expertise. And then they're all in the community that everyone is feeling that way. So they don't even have a neighbor to check in with to see, can you help? I think we need to look at, yeah, thank you, Mia, for bringing up that, because it is it's shining bright on the changes that are needed in this community through the schools. You're right, because like I said earlier, the kids are the ones that are going to make the change, probably not me. So when we're voting this November, yeah, we have national concerns, indeed, but we have some local concerns. And when you vote, please keep that in mind. I think I'm gonna stop right there.
And I think we're out of questions.
Awesome, blossom. Thank you guys for who stood, that hanged in there. I'm just gonna say thank you, because you guys are part of feeding my spirit today. I miss dancing with you, Kimberly, I gotta say. We do spirit dance together. And you know, this is humanitarian work for me. I'm so not a politician. I always say, Barbara Lee told me that, and I always hold true to that. But it's hard, you guys. And so you guys showing up shows me that you guys are part of the fight. And just because the group, I want to be clear with this, just because this is Black Achievers Alliance, everyone that wants to be a part of this fight and work, you can be a member. It's free flowing. It's just that the Black voice has to be heard. Our struggle has to be recognized. The fight has to be about us. But I call you guys all in. I don't care if you're pink, green, purple. If your heart and spirit is willing to really do the work, please contact me or Kate, because we need your help. And again, I thank you for helping my spirit. Thank you for, I think I can go enjoy some of the sunshine today and take some breaths. And so thank you guys all. And thank you, Sarah Henry. You are the bomb.
Thanks, Robbie. You're the bomb too. Bye, everybody. Good to see you.